Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Sandy Smith, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1 Damien Wolfe. We warmly welcome the family of Sapper Andrew Charles Dillon, whose story will be told shortly. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors to the memorial, and cadets on behalf of 37 Army Cadet Unit Albury-Wodonga. If you are able, I now invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If you are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament. Flowers of the forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
we remember and pay tribute to Sapper Andrew Charles Dillon. Andrew Dillon was born in February of 1888 in the Melbourne suburb of Malvern, one of 6 children born to Andrew and Jane Dillon. The elder children had been born in England before the family emigrated to Australia. Andrew commonly went by his middle name, Charlie. He attended Malvern High School and eventually took on a trade, becoming a carpenter and joiner. Charlie's mother died in 1906 when he was around 18 years old, and in time his father remarried. Between 1910 and 1913, Charlie also undertook military service with Field Troop No. 3 of the Australian Engineers. Following the outbreak of the First World War, Charlie Dillon enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in January 1916, becoming a driver with the 15th Field Company Engineers. He served in France that autumn, but in October fell from a horse and was hospitalised with concussion. Charlie's recovery was slow, and he continued to suffer headaches. He also met and fell in love with his nurse in England, a 19-year-old from South Wales named Elsie Ann Hillier. The two were married in Bournemouth in March 1917. Charlie returned to his unit in France later that year, but continued to be plagued by injury and illness. He was probably lucky to survive a bout of the Spanish flu, a milder strain that was circulating in the summer of 1918. Following the armistice, Charlie and his bride returned to Australia in February 1920, already with 2 children in tow. The couple would go on to have 8, all told, 5 girls, 3 boys. During the Depression and interwar years, as his family grew, Charlie presumably got work where he could make use of his carpentry skills, eventually becoming a foreman. The Dillons settled in Hampton, an eastern Bayside suburb of Melbourne. Charlie became an active member of the local Returned Servicemen's League and 2 friendly societies, the Ancient Order of Foresters and the United Friendly Society. Wanting to maintain his military service, Dillon joined the militia and from 1934 to 1937 served with the 2nd Heavy Brigade, Australian Garrison Artillery. Following the outbreak of the Second World War, Charlie enlisted into the Army once again in 1942 at the age of 54. After a brief posting to Puckapunyal, he was transferred to the 4th Anti-Tank Company at Coburg and later to the 13th Anti-Tank. Charlie's service saw him remain in Australia for the duration of the war. He transferred to the 11th Maintenance Platoon, Royal Australian Engineers, in 1943, then to the 12th Maintenance Platoon in June 1945. Some weeks later, after atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan surrendered on the 15th of August 1945. Victory over Japan Day, as it became known, saw huge crowds pour into city streets to celebrate the end of the war. Yet that very day also saw tragedy. Given leave, Charlie Dillon was heading home on the train. Shortly after 4:30 p.m, it pulled into Hampton Station, where a mass of people got off and a large crowd formed on the platform. As Dillon stepped off the train, he paused to rebalance the kit bag across his shoulders. Getting the all-clear signal, the train moved off. As it did, the carriage caught Charlie's kit bag, dragging him to the platform where he became wedged between it and the train. 2 men rushed to grab Charlie and tried to pull him clear, but the train wrenched him from their grasp and he was pulled along to the end of the platform. He then dropped off the platform onto the tracks, but clear of the train. He was rushed to Alfred Hospital, unconscious and badly injured, and was later transferred to Heidelberg Military Hospital. Suffering severe injuries to his hip, chest, and head, Charlie died 3 days later, on the 18th of August, without regaining full consciousness. The following Wednesday, he was buried at Springvale War Cemetery. He was 57 years old. Charlie Dillon's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sapper Andrew Charles Dillon, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
And for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.